World War III. We're continuing to broadcast, and we're continuing to basically give arms to the Ukrainians, and the Russians are kind of hyping things up, and we're living in some serious times right now. We're hoping to talk with some great guests this morning here at www.theupliftlive.com, and be sure to tell a friend about this radio station. For many of you in the Dallas Fort Worth area, you anywhere across the nation, and you've come to Dallas, Texas over the last 30 years, you had a book, you had a concert or something of that sort, you probably came through our former radio station, Heaven 97 KHVN. Well, that station now is, of course, run by the Black Information Network, and we're certainly, I want to salute them. And also, we'd like to salute this young lady that's on the screen with me now, the one and only Cheryl Smith. And we can't thank Cheryl enough for being what we consider to be the dean of journalism. And when it comes down to information, we got into these fields because we wanted to be an asset to our community. And first of all, Cheryl, just want to say good morning to you, Cheryl. How are you on this Saturday morning?
Good morning. I'm doing great. We had a great week. I'm going to say that about every week because we're here to enjoy it and make
Well,
time.
in this media business, as I look back over my 30 years, and I know you have many years as well to look back over, do you think that this is a calling? Because, when I think of other career alternatives, I don't know anything else I'd want to do other than be in the media, be on top of things. And I got into this business because I wanted to know. I didn't want to perish because of a lack of knowledge. But how do you view this whole information business, Cheryl? You publish
Well,
newspapers, you've done radio. You're working with TV stations, Dallas Morning News, Channel 5. You're doing a whole lot of things.
it's interesting that you say that, Robert, because I got in because I wanted to tell those stories. I wanted to be a, I wanted, I didn't see people who look like me. And I wanted to tell the stories from our perspective. And sadly, things have changed because news is different. And people, um, we have to change things and get back to a certain extent wanting information and using that information to empower ourselves and our communities because we have people who they get into the media not to get the information but to be seen,
Mm,
to be to be to be the story instead of to tell the story. You know,
yes.
I still cringe when I go places. And last night I wanted to cover the Living Legends program from Reverend Ron Bivens, and I was selected as one of them. And I said, "Oh, I have to run a picture of myself." Whereas we live in a society of people want to be seen all the time. And so you look at what's happening and the business we're in, it has to be a calling. Did a panel
Mm,
the other night with a number of law enforcement, and it brought a smile to my face hearing Sheriff Brown and all the other chiefs and different, these are all black people talking about why they got into law enforcement and
mhm.
what they wanted to do. And I think about teachers also, and my position is, if you go to school every day and you're sitting in your car or you're walking down the hall to your classroom and said, "Oh, I have to put up with these hellions today," you shouldn't be in the classroom. If
Yes,
you
indeed.
go to work as a law enforcement person and all you do is say, "Oh, I got to go out and deal with these bad, whatever you want to call them, and these thugs and all of that." You should not be in the business. If you go into being a doctor, and you figure that, oh, black women complain too much about their health and everything, and you shouldn't be in the business. If you go into media, PR, journalism, or whatever, and all you're about is seeing how many clicks you can get, seeing how many people will see you elevating yourself, you should choose another profession. And that's why I love mine. I love telling stories. I love, doing a 98-year-old Mr. Calhoun. And some people might say, "Well, why don't you just wait till he's 100 to celebrate his birthday?" How many black men make it to 100?
Not very many at all. Not
Exactly.
many at
So
all.
the joy that I could give them in 98 years, of putting him on the front page of one of my publications. I mean, it's priceless.
Beautiful, beautiful. All right. Well, once again, if you're just now joining us, you're listening and watching the review. And of course, we're broadcasting live on an online new gospel radio station for Dallas, Texas. I believe you know we had Heaven 97 for years. We had KKDA. These were stations that pretty much served the Black community. But as time changes, so does radio in terms of ownership and things of that sort. And now we have, of course, FM stations. And now our FM stations, we can't blast them or criticize them too much because they do, I guess, whatever they're allowed to do in terms of encouraging people to get out there and vote, but in having deep, detailed conversations about the essence of what's going on in our community, they're maybe they're not formatted towards that, even though they could be. But either way it goes, Cheryl Smith is with me today, considered to be the dean of journalism here in our Dallas Fort Worth community. We do this program each and every Saturday morning. It's called The Review, and www.theupliftlive.com, filling that void here in our Dallas Fort Worth community. And of course, we're just honored to have Cheryl with us. Now, Cheryl, also, as we look at some of the big issues that took place this particular week here, it seems like Texas Governor Greg Abbott is going to continue to hunker down on not wanting to use any kind of inclusive elements to bring forth equity and justice here in the state of Texas. Is the legislature in a position to deal with him, or are the Republicans just in control here in the state of Texas? Senator Royce West seemed like he's trying to work diplomatically with the Republicans, but trying to get more inclusiveness here in the state of Texas, it seemed like that's just not happening. Or can it happen?
No. And that's a sentence. No. But I'll elaborate, and I'll just say, I want to say good morning to all of your guests, and thanks for tuning in for information, because there is so much information out there. We need to know that the Democrats, and you mentioned the word diplomacy, being diplomatic.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we're in a position that we're in right now, because we're trying to be nice.
Oh my goodness, yes.
And and sometimes you just can't be nice. Democrats want to be nice and right. Republicans want to win. And there's a difference when and this is all, like Mr. Dick Gregory used to say, this is all a game. And who walks away the winner? We have people at the end of the session last time. We talked with legislators. We went and we met in Houston, NAACP, a number of organizations, talking about how racist, and they use a lot of other nicer words too, but just call it racist, because that pisses Republicans and white folks off when you call them I'm not a racist. Well, yes, you are. You're doing racist things, okay? And they were really upset because they had virtually no influence. I won't say power. I'll say no influence.
Mm-hmm.
And they're back in another session where Republicans are in control, and they want what they want, and they are going to get it. What do they want? If what they will ultimately get, if we are not careful, they will get the presidency in 24.
Mm-hmm.
They're setting things into play. The Democrats are ready to do, the first thing they do is complain about not having any money. And so that's an issue. But things are really volatile in Austin. People are treated not so respectfully as folks that push through their own agendas, and we are the minority in that game that's being played there. So we have to keep our eyes on. We have to keep up with things. Robert, I want to tell you that I was checking in Florida, and Florida is like the sister city to Texas. Yes, people. I remember even being in Florida when both of us had Bushes for governors, and I'm watching TV and I'm hearing them talking about Governor Bush, and I'm thinking I'm back in Dallas watching TV. They're talking about the brother, but there's some legislation going on around this country that is just, if we are going to be lulled to sleep, if we're going to let the major news organizations say they're looking for a comedian type to host a news show in the evening. And I'm not saying the comedians, they aren't some well versed and intellectual comedians. In fact, you have to know a lot about you have to know a little about everything and you have to be constantly reading, and that's something you yourself saw from Mr. Gregory, that he read a lot,
Beautiful.
and
Yes.
so he could discuss the issues and everything. But when I was looking at what some of the legislators, what some of the Republicans are doing in Florida, and
Yes, indeed.
they one legislator. This is a freshman Republican. He
Yes.
is proposing that there are death penalty changes, allowing just 8 jurors to impose the death penalty and allowing judges to impose death sentences. You know,
Woo.
this, and
God.
this is a freshman coming in. So, he came in with an agenda, and it's just amazing what is going to be passed through the legislation. So we're going to be looking at what's going on in Austin and saying stuff, and we're calling on our legislators to answer the phone and talk, and we're calling on black and white
Yes.
and
Yes.
Latina. We're calling, you have to hold everybody accountable, and that's what we have not been doing. We need to
You
ask.
know, Shirley, now, we know that death penalty, it's already been studied that the death penalty is applied unequally, that we get the death penalty more so than anybody else. And when you think about this patron Gendron demon who shot up the Tops grocery store up there in Baltimore, here this fool, this demon, gets to spend the rest of his life in prison at the tune of maybe $50,000 to $60,000 a year taxpayer expense. And this boy went in there and shot up 10 people. But yet the stupid judicial system allows this demon to continue to live. And where's
And
the outrage? I can understand why that brother went after him in the courtroom, because it seemed like he's going to get away and just spend the rest of his life in prison and act a fool. Now, also joining us, once again, you're watching the review, listening to the review right here at www.theupliftlive.com. I'm Robert Ashton on Saturday morning. That, of course, is Cheryl Smith, the Dean of Journalism here at our Dallas-Fort Worth area, all over the United States of America. She's had impact on young African-American journalists and seasoned journalists. And also with us today, Arthur Fleming, a former president of the Dallas chapter of the NAACP. He's in Tyler, Texas, down around East Texas this morning, working with some of the civil rights community there. And also we have Anthony Bond with us today. Now, Anthony Bond is the founder of the Irving chapter of the NAACP. And y'all, I just learned earlier this week that Anthony Bond was racially profiled by a Irving police officer. Now here, Anthony Bond, founding the NAACP, the founding member of the NAACP, he's taking care of his business, and the next thing you know, some police officer comes up and jacks him up. And you're the founder of the NAACP, and you get racially profiled during Black History Month. So I want to try to incorporate those conversations. And Cheryl, once again, both these gentlemen, author and Mr. Anthony Bond. And once again, Cheryl Smith is with us at this time, and author. Anthony, how are you this morning? How you guys doing this morning?
Good morning. How y'all doing?
Good morning to Cheryl and
good morning.
And Arthur. They are my comrades in arms. That's all I can tell you.
Well, Anthony, we want you to know, my brother.
I went to Tyler last night. I'm at home now. Matter of fact,
you back in Dallas now?
Matter of fact, this afternoon, I'm going to PBS is doing a Reimagining America series, so we're going to be going out to PBS this afternoon. I have an extra ticket, Robert, if you want to come.
I don't know if they want me over there, because I'm not going to bite my tongue. I don't know. But look, we want y'all to know we've been praying for our brother Anthony Bond, the founder of the Irving chapter of the NAACP. Cheryl, I think you were around, and Arthur, you were certainly around when the Irving chapter was founded. And Anthony, I was shocked, man, when you told me you got racially profiled, some Mexican cop in Irving jacking you up.
Yeah, Robert, I tell you what, man. That's why I got my, I don't know if you can see it or not, but I got my toboggan on, and I got my jacket on the back of it. It's got a little hoodie on. And man, I've been out here for 30 years. I founded the Irving branch of NAACP back in 1994. I've had death threats, all kind of SHI, to happen to me out here. because God used me. I'm sure Cheryl and Arthur can say the same things. When
Yes.
my Sunday school teacher told me, when you stand up for Jesus, the devil's going to come at you stronger than ever before. And Arthur, Robert, Arthur and Cheryl, I was just putting out campaign signs for a guy that I'm supporting in District 5 that's running against. There's 5 people in the race, and 4 of them are so far right wing you wouldn't even think they were American. And all 5 of them are Republicans. So I'm trying to do my best to put somebody on that council. We already got 2 of them on there. We got a big Catholic pack here in Irving. People don't know it, and they're putting together they're putting together all this money, and they're running all these far right wing nut jobs. I hate to call any of my neighbors like that, but they's crazy as you know what. And so I was putting out signs. I've been doing this for 30 years, man. I was crossing the street, and it wasn't in the crosswalk, but I was crossing the street like I've done for 30 years, man. And I had campaign signs on my side. You know how you got to cross the street? You put one on one corner, one on the other corner. And I was just going about my business, man. Next thing I know, here comes this Irving big. You know, one of them little SUV. You know, some of them they got them big SUV. It looks like almost like a miniature fire truck. And he cordoned me off, stopped me. And I turned around, you know, I was putting down the sign. I turned around, and here was this Irving police officer right on me. I said, man, what did I do wrong? Why? What are you doing?
Jeez.
He said, sir, you just committed a crime. I said, man, what crime did I just commit? He said, jaywalking.
Oh, brother.
I said, man, I told him who I was. I said, I just had, with the help of Dallas County Commissioner Dr. Elvis Garcia and community leaders all across the city of Irving, a breakfast. He did that to me on last Friday, February the 17th at 1:30 in the afternoon. We had just had a breakfast welcoming our first ever Black police chief. His name is Chief Derek Miller. I've only had a conversation with Chief Miller twice, and I support him. And I told him I was coming on here this morning. And I told him I didn't want to disrespect him. He told me in a text that he's investigating it, and that he reviewed the tape, and that he would get back to me. And so I don't want to show no disrespect or disregard for our new African-American Black police chief. I've advocated for diversity on our force, on our police force, in our city staff, on our fire department, ever since I founded Irving Branch NAACP. And here it comes this guy was a Latino officer. He's shorter than me. And I'm 5'6" and a half. So and I asked him, I said, man.
And a big old SUV.
Yeah, big old SUV, man, cornered me like I was I said, man, you treat me like I'm a criminal. I really wanted to tell him he treat me like a nigger, but because that's the way I felt. And I got a illness that's raging in me that I tell you what, I had to sit there and take that. It was humiliating. And I felt like just going totally berserk on that boy. I'm 68 years old. He's half my age. He has to be a rookie officer. He had fever blisters all over his lips, pimples all over his head. I said, man, I got a grandson older than you, bro. And he just kept saying over and over and over, sir, you committed a crime. He said it about 15, 20 times. I said, okay. I said, okay, man. I said, I'm a former officer in the Navy, man. I put my life on the line for this country, man. I don't deserve to be treated like a boy. He really bowed up then. He said, well, I was in the Marines. I said, okay, man. I said, just what do you need to do with me? And he said, stand right there. He said, I need to see your ID, sir. He said, I'm gonna go up here. And he said, don't move. He said, I'm gonna go up here and I'm gonna run your license. And he said, if you haven't committed a major crime, then I will decide what to do with you.
It's a lot of.
So, okay, so I prayed. I had to pray. I said, Jesus. I said, Jay, I just wanted to go totally berserk on the news, to be honest with you.
Yeah, because
And,
if
but
God if you had attacked it,
I heard the Spirit of God tell me
yeah.
to shut up and not
Yeah.
say a word. And that's what I did.
Even
And I took that.
Wow, that was a quickening of the Holy Ghost, the Lord intervening, because I think you told me you had prayed when this guy came up on you like that.
Oh boy. I mean, Robert,
Did you put your
Cheryl,
handcuffs?
and Arthur, I've got PTSD
Did you put your
from
handcuffs?
seeing my brother's blood and brains all over my hands. And every day that I'm here, it's a struggle for me. And I'm trying my best to do God's will. For me, that's all I can do. I'm just one human being. But the only reason I prayed about this before I came on here tonight, this morning,
Yes.
or whether I should come or not, because I don't want for the police to feel like I'm their enemy, but I don't want the police to treat me like I'm their enemy. I was doing nothing wrong to be treated that way.
Yes.
Did they put your handcuffs?
Did they handcuff you, man, or what they
No,
do?
he didn't handcuff me, but he told me to stand right there and not move. I felt like I was being detained.
Mm-hmm.
He had no right to bother me, period. He had no right to stop me, period.
So you filed a written complaint? Did you file?
Yes, I did, and I talked to the city manager and to all the city council, and the chief just texted me and said that he's looking into my complaint and that he's gonna get back to me.
And this is not an isolated incident. I don't know about the rest of you, but the frustration that I feel seeing you, Anthony, and knowing that there are other instances when stuff is going out there in Irving, and Irving kind of gets lost in the shuffle of everything. We need to highlight that. We need to illuminate and let people know, because if those who are watching can see a grown man with grandchildren, how it impacts him. Imagine how it's impacting our young boys and girls who are out there who are getting treated the same. And I just applaud you for saying something, because too often we're quiet. And I say, anytime anybody acts up on me, I'm going to be that voice for that person who does not feel empowered to go and report it.
Yes. Now, Arthur, let me ask you a question, because when these officers approach us and they ask us to give our identification, for years I've heard that that's a big controversy. Some instances say that you don't have to give a cop your ID, and some instances they say, well, you may as well go ahead and give it to him because he's going to ratchet it up if you don't. Anthony, did they ask you for your ID, Anthony?
Yes, that's correct.
Did you give it to him?
Of course I did. Of course I did. I had no reason not to give it to him. And plus, I knew that this officer, he was not only wrong, he was hellaciously wrong. See? Because I've been doing this. I've talked to city councilman, our mayor, and everybody that's anybody that's ever worked on campaigns. You know what all of them told me? They said if what I did was a crime, then they've committed it over 1,000 times. They weren't stopped. None of them were stopped. None of them were detained. None of them were treated. And I felt like this boy, and he's Latino. And it's just like what happened down there in Memphis. Those were 5 black officers that beat the hell out of that boy and killed him. So in this, racial profiling can be done by the blue. Anybody in the blue. It's not just the white officers.
The key okay, like if they stop you, and you haven't committed a crime or you haven't did anything, okay, then you're not obligated to give them your ID and that type of stuff. Now he rolled up on him and said you committed a crime, told him what the supposed crime was. So he went ahead and did what he's supposed to do. But now he have some legal recourse, in that situation. Now I was down at the courthouse the other day for the swearing-in event. of a judge. And when I was coming back, I jaywalked across the street with a police officer, a lady. So, you know, they just tell you how subject that is. Now, I've seen videos where white women are calling police on black men for looking at them. You remember reckless eyeballing back in the day? They trying to bring reckless eyeballing back. So we're in a fight, y'all. These people ain't playing. This fascist time situation, and hey, you know, we got to take it seriously.
Okay, but let me ask Cheryl another question, because this thing about this giving officers your ID. Now, take for example, I mean, so an officer needs to tell you what possibly crime you've committed before you give him the ID.
Right.
Right. They have to have probable cause for even searching you. You're in your car. They can't just say, and they can ask you, can I search your car? Can I search your premises? And if you say no, they have to abide by that, but they make all kind of excuses. They say they heard something, or they saw a weapon, or they saw blood, or something that gives them probable cause to pursue further. We are in a fight. We are in a serious fight, and that is why I know Anthony and Arthur and Robert, you all know that there were protests led against the police department 30 years ago. And guess what? People were sitting home and actually poo-pooing, saying, what are they out there for? They crazy. But we managed to get up when it hits us at home.
That's correct.
And that is, we have to be on the case if it has no impact on us. If we think, because ultimately it does. You're mentioning your case, and there's a young man, I was looking at his papers, Sanko Prelo. He's dealing with a similar situation in Irving.
Sanko's my buddy. I know all about it.
And so we have these instances, and we don't need anybody out there. And that is what is wrong. One of the wrong things, if you put on the side of social media, you have these folks who will automatically say, well, you had to be looking suspicious, or you had to be doing something wrong. And we try to rationalize for the arrest or the detainment or whatever, but we don't rationalize for it's a hardworking man just doing his job. And that's what you were.
Well, Robert, and I'll tell you what, Robert, let me tell you something else. I was racially profiled in 1996, in December of 1996, by two black Memphis police officers. I had rented a 1996 Lincoln Town car from DFW Airport to take my present, a big stereo from Curtis Mathis, to my two daughters for Christmas. I went through a ice storm. From here to Greenville. It took me 4 hours to drive from Irving to Greenville. And then I had 7 more hours to go, but I made it. But when I came through downtown Memphis, it was like about 12:30 a.m. I was the only car on the road. These two black officers stopped me, and I said I was shocked. I was the only car on the road. I said, sir, why did you stop me? You know, he said, for failure to make a lane change. I said, man, you have got to be green. And he told me, you got a bad attitude. He slapped me in handcuffs. These two black officers threw me in the back of the squad car, and I was back in there crying. My mama used to always tell me, boy, you cry crocodile tears. I didn't think two black officers could treat a black man like that. They ran all my stuff. They asked me, like Cheryl said, they searched me and let me go.
I don't know why you thought that.
Could I ask you a question, Anthony? Do you know the name of the officer?
Yes. His name is Kay, and he was gonna give me. He told me before he went up there and told me to not move and run my license. He told me he was gonna give me his card and his license number. And name, but he never did. But I looked on his nameplate. It's KVELEZ, and he's got to be one of these rookie officers. He's got to be a rookie. I've talked to several other urban police officers, the fire chief, Dr. Garcia, and everybody. They said this boy, and even the police chief said
Rick
needs
ain't
more
no excuse,
training.
bro. Him being a rookie ain't no excuse. That ain't got nothing to do with nothing. That's just wrong. Rookie
And
ain't,
the
I'm
Irving
not
Police
police
saying
chief
academy.
said
that he's a rookie.
the
rookie ain't got
police
nothing to
chief
do.
told me that he must have missed
No,
that in
no, you ain't got to
training.
make no excuse for him.
Yeah.
You got to make no excuse for him.
And what they're
None.
actually doing is setting up a narrative that says that we aren't like that. This has to be when it's happening. That wasn't a rookie with Sanko. I'm not giving him a pass. So you said it was K period Velez. You're saying
Velez. And plus, Cheryl, and I just told the chief this in a text. After this happened to me, I told it to several other people here in Irving, and now I've got written evidence, where back, I think it was maybe in 2016, the police officers did the same thing, same circumstances, and they arrested two people that were handing out signs because they detained them just like me. And they ran their ID, and they found out that they had outstanding tickets, and they arrested them on the spot. This is on Channel 5 News. I've got all that documentation. So this is
All right,
not the first
ladies and
time
gentlemen.
this has happened. That's
Yes,
why.
I got to get ready to pause right now for just a
Okay.
quick break. And once again, if you're just now joining us, you're listening and you're watching at www.theupliftlive.com. You can see it right there. Go to the App Store and download our app at Uplifted Now. Brand new 24-hour gospel radio station here in Dallas, Fort Worth. Each and every Saturday morning, we're on with the review. I'm Robert Ashley, longtime journalist here in our Dallas Fort Worth community. We're going to get ready to pause right now for just a quick break. But right now, we're talking about some of the issues of the day. One of our NAACP founders of the Irving chapter racially profiled during Black History Month. Just an incredible situation. Once again, Arthur Fleming is also with us, one of our top NAACP officials, along with Cheryl Smith. We consider her the dean of journalism. Going to pause quickly. We'll be back with more right after this. Let's see. Let's explore it. And we welcome you back to www.theupliftlive.com. I'm Robert Ashley here with you on a Saturday morning. And once again, get on the phone and tell a friend about what we're doing. Now, also, you can find us on social media. We're all over social media, taking advantage of this brand new technology. Now that our radio stations, Heaven 97, KKDA, and they're no longer here. And of course, we continue to shout out to the FM radio stations. And of course, 1040 KGGR still on the air there. But once again, you're listening to www.theupliftlive.com. Go to the App Store, Google Play, and look for Uplifted Now and download that app on your phone. That way you can take this brand new gospel radio station with you 24/7. And once again, we are honored to have you with us. Now, also be sure to check us out. Robert Ashley Show, the Robert Ashley Channel. We're trying to take advantage of social media and continue to educate our people. But with us this morning, we have some very distinguished guests who are with us today. We have the one and only Cheryl Smith, considered to be the Dean of Journalism. And of course, when KKDA was on the air each and every Sunday morning, I sure do miss those programs with the great Judge Mary Ellen Hicks and KKDA, the late cousin Lenny. I could just call the roll. They would walk down every night. Now, also with us today, Arthur Fleming. Author, the former president of the Dallas chapter of the NAACP, very much involved with the civil rights community. We check in with Arthur, and not too long ago, the state president of the NAACP called upon the NFL and the NBA not to have any championship games in Dallas, in the state of Texas, until Governor Greg Abbott moved off of his opposition to diversity in terms of employment and hiring, things of that sort. And also, Anthony Bond is with us this morning. I met Anthony years ago when he was the founder, when in Irving didn't even have an NAACP chapter. And he initiated that chapter only to find out years later that he has been the victim of racial profiling during Black History Month. And from what we understand, it's being investigated by the Irving Police Department. There's a brand new chief there who happens to be an African-American by the name of Chief Miller. And we thank him so very much. Well, ladies and gentlemen, as we move on real quickly to a couple other stories here, starting with you, Cheryl, the former president, Jimmy Carter, is in hospice care. And when we look back at presidents who seemingly were friends of the African-American community, how do we remember Jimmy Carter, even though he's still alive, but he's 98 years old and he's now in hospice care?
Yeah, that's very interesting. I remember first seeing him in actually 1980. He came to Tallahassee, Florida, and I was working for the Tallahassee Capital Outlook, and I got to be right there on the front row. And then a few years ago, interestingly, he came to Dallas with Habitat for Humanity.
That's right.
It was right, he was right there within arm's reach. And when we look at presidents and we look at what they do, I think the research is not there as some of the things were actually happening. And when President Carter was running for re-election, and everyone knows who was running, challenging him, and I found America to be really complacent at that time because they felt that we had things made because we had a Democrat in office. And so we didn't do the work that we need to do, not realizing, and Anthony, Arthur, and Robert, you can tell me if you think it's wrong. Do we get light when we are in positions of power versus continuing we get comfortable and say, oh, we have a Democrat in office and he's going to look out for us. And guess what? We don't do the work that we need to do with voting to make sure that when midterm elections come, that there are people sent there to help them to do the things that they need to do. People mocked Jimmy Carter, but you can't mock his heart and what he has done, and where he came from and what he tried to do. And I think that people have a kinder feeling about him as he got older and did his work. He wasn't trying to make you love him or anything. He did what he felt his life's calling was.
Mm-hmm. And Arthur, what do you think?
Let me get some context. Let me get some context. Sure, we can talk about this thing, right? Remember, he was elected in 1976. They just got through killing all our civil rights leaders. 68, so forth. And, they killed everybody. They were winding down. The FBI was winding down the civil rights movement. Nixon, because I was in the Air Force at that time during the Vietnam War. Nixon got in all that trouble, sullied the presidency's image. So Jimmy Carter came through as the clean guy, right?
Exactly. So
to try to clean up the mess. They put everything on the rug, basically. So he came in to clean up the mess. Now, if that plane hadn't, when it went over to Iran, if that plane hadn't got stuck in the desert, he'd probably still be president. But at the time, we had a fascist, racist Ronald Reagan, who was up and coming in the Republican Party. He started blowing that dog whistle about winding down that civil rights movement. He was against Martin Luther King Day and all that type of stuff. So he came out, went to Philadelphia, Mississippi, right?
Right.
Campaign.
And endorsed by the Klan there too.
Endorsed by the Klan. And so he started what you're talking about now. He brought in Pat Buchanan. He went to Bitburg, and later Reef at the Grave at SS. Everybody thought that was okay. And so he was a forerunner of what we got now. So I'm just saying that they went to work on us early. Remember, at the end of the 80s, the Bakke case, they decided it was reverse discrimination. So they started that. Now, right there, Sheriff, where I agree with you. We didn't fight it back. We didn't fight back. We had Ben Hooks in office as far as the NAACP at that time. He allowed Clarence Thomas. First, Clarence came and ruined the EEOC. And then we allowed him, the NAACP. Ben Hooks waited until after he came out of committee before the NAACP came out against him, because he was a big partner with Bush now. So you're right, we didn't fight back, but I just want to give a little context to that.
All right. Anthony, some of your thoughts about Jimmy Carter. I mean, he was a Christian, he taught Sunday school, he built houses, but it seemed like that Iran-Contra thing just hung his presidency up.
Yeah, it did, Robert. But my grandparents,
Iranian hostage.
My ancestors were, my granddaddy, both on my maternal and paternal side, their grandparents and great grandparents were slaves. And one of the things I hear ringing in my ear from my grandmother, who died on November 2nd, 1976, when Jimmy Carter was elected president. One thing rings in my ears is she told me, she said, "Boy, old man time will teach you a lot of things." Now, all of the things that Cheryl and Arthur have pointed out about this man are true. But I tell you what, in the essence, in my belief as a Christian, our Lord and Savior says that, and the scriptures say that our Lord has a place prepared for him. And I think he's going to hear the words, "Welcome in, my good and faithful servant." That doesn't mean he's right about everything, or he was the best president in the world. But I tell you one thing that I feel and will always cherish about him, in my memory, is how he dedicated his life way beyond being a president to help so many underprivileged people. It way outweighs his presidency to me. His commitment to giving to other people is unprecedented, other than any other president in my lifetime. I've been here since 1954. I've never known another president that's given so much back after his presidency. Yeah, he can be questioned about all the things. He's just one man. Even the president, we give the president way too much power. To me, he's just one man. But overall, I would give President Carter a very healthy B plus. He didn't go along with some things we wanted to. So
he can't help because he had a brother named Billy.
Too much Billy beer.
Too much Billy everything. Billy was
we don't pick our families. we don't pick our families.
But it seemed like he was a president who wasn't afraid to show his heart for people, and that the media made him come off as he was real soft.
That's
but
right.
as he's laying in that hospice bed right now, it seemed like there's just a flood of positive emotions for former President Jimmy Carter.
Yeah, the good outweighs the bad.
Jimmy Carter's one of those. Look at Jimmy Carter's one of those, quote, what we call back then good white folks. That right thing after the movement. He was trying to do the right. He was trying to do the right thing.
That's right.
And he ran up against the MAGA Republicans.
That's right. And can you imagine a Jimmy Carter in today's Georgia? He wouldn't have stood a chance.
Okay, now look, here locally, there's another case that made news this week. Kyle Dale. Have y'all been following the Kyle Dale shooting? I think one of the civil rights leaders attorneys who had been with Lee Merritt, one of the civil rights lawyers there, filed a lawsuit. Kyle Dale was a young man who supposedly had been accused of selling drugs at a store, and supposedly he was armed. He threw his weapon away. I don't know if y'all saw that on television or not. Are y'all familiar with the Kyle Dale?
I saw it.
What's any thoughts about that? Because the family have filed a lawsuit saying that he was wrongfully shot by police officers, and supposedly he was accused of a crime, but he seemed like he threw his gun away, but yet he still wound up getting shot by Dallas PD.
Yeah, Robert, I tell you what, as and I'm sure Arthur and Cheryl, as a journalist, and Arthur as a civil rights leader in the NAACP, I tell you one thing. My first impression of that, Robert, is let's get all the facts, because I tell you what, I went to bat for so many people: Black, white, Hispanic, Muslim, Christian, Jews, Hindus, and Asians, and all kind of subgroups of Americans, and they didn't tell me the truth. But I took what I knew for the truth. But then once all the facts came out, the people that I was supporting, they didn't tell me the whole truth. So, I think we just need to as a wise, it's better to be wise than correct.
Hey, Robert,
If you're correct,
Yes, sir.
you're still gonna win.
Hey, Robert, speaking
To
of
jump
folks,
to conclusions, I don't like that.
hey, Robert, speaking of folks that got shot, Ben Crump and Malcolm X's daughters filed a $100 million lawsuit this week behind the assassination of Malcolm X, and I think that's going to be something interesting that we're going to really need to follow. Like they need to ask that. We need civil rights organizations need to ask that J. Edgar Hoover's name be removed from all federal buildings.
I agree with that.
His name shouldn't be on one building.
I agree with that.
And so that's going to be interesting.
I agree with
Yeah,
that.
in that particular case involving Ben Crump and the daughter of Malcolm X, I saw that news conference. They're contending that the New York City Police Department, the state of New York, the federal government, they all withheld information about who really killed Malcolm. Because if you recall, the two guys who spent time in locked up for Malcolm's death, they've been exonerated, and I think awarded millions of dollars. So it seems like it seems like the FBI, going back to Dr. King's assassination, all these assassinations, these folk, I mean, the government was just going around killing people in the name of the FBI, and hopefully it will come out.
And I said this. COINTELPRO 2 is at work right now. The black identity, fake black identity politic thing. Christopher Wray need to resign. Creating, send criminals in our community to create criminality, setting people up.
Robert, they tell me all of my, and I've got some old people. I rely on the people that have been here a lot longer than me to be my political advisors. Robert, you and Cheryl, I would look for you all, people like you all, to be my advisors on the history of what has happened to our Black people here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, because I've only been here since 1988. But I say that to say this, that Robert, Malcolm, and John, most people say, and Robert too, were all assassinated for one common reason. And that's because all four of them were trying to lead America into a redistribution of the wealth. And these people in power, they didn't want it then, and they don't want it now. That's why we had a former president, allegedly, a two-term president. Was Trump in there two terms?
No, Trump was only in there one term.
Well,
Trump
was only president. Okay, I want to be correct.
It felt like two.
But now this going back to the $100 million lawsuit.
How much money did he pay in taxes?
Against the government, the city of New York, and he also alleged that the CIA and the FBI was involved with this. But like you said, author Christopher Wray, the current FBI director, Can we trust any of these so-called intelligence organizations?
No. Look here, they have a program. They recruited me for it when they first started. About it was around 2000. They got a program called a community liaison program, and
Oh,
and I know a lot of folks that went through it, and they told me about, what they be doing, and basically what they do, they come and they say, hey, look, we want to show you what we do and so forth. Now, first of all, you got to understand the FBI is a information collection organization. Okay, they don't do tea parties. Okay, and so if they talking to you, they talking to you for information. So I was recruited to go into the program. I told them no. Now I can name some folks that went through it. But anyway, what they do is you go in, they show you films and of certain situations and ask you what you think about it. And then after you tell them what you think, if it ain't what they think you ought to think, then they show it to you again and show you why you're wrong. I mean, so this psychological kind of warfare. But anyway, and so they take, and so then after that, they have a thing what they call alumni meetings or graduate meetings, something like that. Anyway, they come together and basically come together, get some tea and cookies and coffee, like Malcolm said, also with a cup of coffee. They get you in there, and then they basically, basically just be, giving information in a social setting. And so when I became president of the NAACP, they came at me again. And and I told, and so finally I told them, I said, hey, look, I said, tell him, because they called me on the phone. I said, I tell you what, tell the director that I'll meet with him, but we're gonna need to do if we can do a press conference, after the meeting where we can talk about, no. I said, well, I can't meet with you then, because see, look, if you go meet with people like that and nobody, and nobody knows it, right? Okay, they got you in there, got all that, and then later on, if you do something they don't like, they'll tell folks you've been meeting with them. Then folks be looking at you like, hey, man, what you meet with the FBI for? Right? So that's kind of...
Now, Reverend Al Sharpton has made it very, very clear that he didn't mind snitching on the mob. So are you trying to say that we got black folks in the black community that the intelligence community is using to snitch on the black community?
Al Sharpton is a good example of what I'm talking about. Okay, when he got ready to run for president, okay, they pulled out the tape. Now, Al said he thought it was some mafioso coming in and try to take over the community. He was just trying to get out of that with his life. That's what he was saying. But it was the FBI again setting him up.
Oh boy!
Right? And as soon as he reached for power, what they do? They pulled out the tape. So I'm saying that's what they do. When you interact with them, you got to understand that they are an information gathering organization. They are not your friend. Okay, and they said, and now they're doing COINTELPRO too, right? I don't think they go around shooting people at at this moment, but they are setting people up. I mean, they will set you up. And so, I mean, the guy that the guy that they did all that stuff to. Now, first of all, if you see, did you see that guy? Have you seen what he look like?
Yes, I've seen it. Yeah.
And I'm going, black folks, y'all trying to work with that dude? You can look at him and tell something's wrong with him. Now he's a pedophile. Got cases against him and so forth and so on. And so these are the type of people that the FBI is putting in our community to set us up.
And they're going after respectable people too. And they are looking at, we really need to understand that there is a target on Black elected officials. Mm-hmm. And you can say whatever you want to say, because you know what? The folks who are helping or putting the outline on the target are Black people, because we don't like to see Black people being successful or doing something. We want to challenge everything. So we become the biggest critics. We are as bad as the Memphis 5 or those officers who stop you because we say we got something negative to say about everything, because psychologically we are so messed up ourselves. We're so unhappy.
That's correct.
You turn on whoever's closest to you. There are people here now. There are people who have been hired to come into this region to get certain Black elected officials. They want them. If they can take the bigger the name, and if their elected official believe me, they're on the list. You have people who are going to jail now because they did not snitch
Mm-hmm.
on
And
something, or
I
they
tell
did
you
not
what,
participate in something to set them up.
and I
Hey,
tell you what,
hey, 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 I like to say this, Sheriff.
The city of Dallas should be a case for exactly what Cheryl and the biggest example of what Arthur and Cheryl are talking about. How they went after Don, Al, and
Sure.
John. And I could name more. I'm sure Cheryl and Arthur could name more. But I
Sure.
tell you what, it was a lot of other people that they gave a pass to that did more criminality than John, Al, and Don could ever have done down there. If you really got into it.
Sure, give the psychological context of which you speak of that stuff. Where Black folks in America, we are in a abusive relationship with white America, and we have all the symptoms of an abused spouse. I mean, and so within that context, you can do all that stuff that you're talking about, and they have, they have a psychological profile, and they know how to pit people against each other and so forth and so on, just like you're saying. And so I know what you're saying, and that's definitely true. So maybe we need to have maybe we need to start having our own educational process about authoritarianism, how the FBI works, maybe we need to educate our community about about that, and about the abuses, because there are some abuse, there have been abuses documented and so forth, and so we need to understand that.
All right, well, ladies and gentlemen, once again, you're listening and watching The Review. We're coming to you right here out of the great state of Texas, Dallas, Texas. I'm Robert Ashley, and once again, you're watching www.theupliftlive.com. Texas online. And once again, go to Google Play or go to the App Store and you can find our app. We're going to get ready to pause right now for just a real quick break. Once again, we're talking with the one and only Cheryl Smith. We consider her the Dean of Journalism here in the state of Texas in Dallas, Fort Worth. Also with us today, former NAACP President Arthur Fleming, very much involved in our civil rights community. And also Anthony Bond. Now, Anthony Bond he was the founder of the Irving chapter of the NAACP, and was recently racially profiled by a young Latino officer there in Irving, Texas, as he was just passing out some campaign signs. A cop run up on him and do the whole nine. He didn't know who Anthony Bond was. Anthony Bond had just worked with the new Black police chief there in Irving, Texas, getting everybody together only to be racially profiled during Black History Month. And I was telling Anthony when he told me about this story, I said, well, Anthony, you have made the devil mad. All right, I'll tell you what, we're going to pause for a quick break. Now, when we get back, let's talk about President Biden. He spent time there in Ukraine this week. Now, also, there's been a lot of talk about all of this $130 billion that we have been sending to Ukraine. Are we sending any money to South Dallas or South Fort Worth, or are we just investing our future there in Ukraine? Or are we getting ready for World War III? All right, we're going to pause quickly. We'll be back with more right after this. And we welcome you back to www.theupliftlive.com. And once again, go to Google Play or the App Store and look for Uplift It Now. That is the app that you can download and take this brand new gospel radio station with you everywhere you go. Now, we've been on the air at least for 2 years here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. We're online. And, it takes a little traction. It takes a little time to get yourself established. But once again, we are here with you each and every Saturday morning. It's called The Review with yours truly, Robert Ashley. I spent well over 30 years covering news here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And of course, the radio station that we had worked for, Heaven 97, was eventually sold to iHeartRadio. And they're now the Black Information Network. And really, to tell you the truth, I had been negotiating with the Black Information Network, one of our great sisters there by the name of Tanita. But somehow or another, Tanita was at the Black Entertainment segment down in New Orleans. I think it was the Essence Festival, and that sister somehow or another lost her life. And the only thing that we know about Tanita's death, it was a medical emergency. And believe it or not, at the time, Tanita and I had been talking, it's even spoken with the vice president of the network about possibly becoming a part of that Black Information Network. But either way it goes, it's on Heaven 97 now. The legacy that we're leaving. But this morning, we're talking here with Anthony Bond, founding member of the Irving chapter of the NAACP. Cheryl Smith is also with us today, considered to be the Dean of Journalism here in Dallas-Fort Worth. She has helped so many journalists get in their positions, make money, do all sorts of things there. She's a professor, as she's been hiring and helping a lot of our young people. And also Arthur Fleming, the president of the Dallas NAACP at one time, very much involved with the civil rights movement. And Cheryl, coming to you, as we look at what's going on with the Biden administration, all of this $130 billion we're sending over to Ukraine. Just some of your thoughts about that. In the Black community, we got Lloyd Austin, who's our defense secretary. Do we know what's going on there? Is that money going to really be used to keep peace in this world? Or could we be sending some of that money to South Dallas and South Fort Worth or South Irving or somewhere?
And that's what people would say, that we need peace in America. That, we're fighting so many wars, so many battles and everything. And you think about that the president went into an actual combat zone where we don't have a military presence. That's something to think about. And something like that has the closest the president has been to a combat zone like that was Abe Lincoln. So you're looking at putting things into context, and you look at the additional $500 million that just went there. And this was a secret meeting, almost which it was with the president and the first lady of Ukraine. But you look at, okay, we're looking at the suffering that is going on here. Yes, we have to be concerned about our brethren around the world, but what are our brethren around the world saying about us when they see we don't even take care of our own? And that's what you're hearing from people. And people are not that happy with or enamored with America, because they get to see all the Karens of the world and their male counterparts and see the arrogance and the way that we act. And they're not happy with America, but they'll take our money. And they're looking at, the money that we put into making sure that other countries are able to hold a gauntlet over our heads, to hold us in captivity to products, when we have people who are doing things right in America that as we try to sustain our businesses. So there are a lot of issues around this front. I know that, which I don't care what the CIA and the FBI and those are saying in an instance where they're saying they did not want him to go. What I'm looking at, what policies, and that we need to listen more to our Congressional Black Caucus. We really do, and listen at the issues that they're bringing up, because we are not paying attention to issues. We are paying attention to personalities.
Wow.
We don't like this elected official. We don't like that elected official. And it's not even about that. When they're calling attention and raising the issues, we need to pay attention and ask questions.
Yes. Well, Arthur, what do you think about the funding of Ukraine? I mean, are we doing that to stop World War III, or do we even understand this mess?
Well, with just some context, no, this ain't no World War III thing. This is a world-changing thing. The technology has flipped the world. The transition is on. That's a white folks civil war. That's what that is. White folks civil war. And what they're fighting over, is, how they're going to treat the rest of the world. Are they going to be authoritarian and go into that mode and go into the domination kind of thing, or are they going to try to get along with the rest of the world? The money and the money that you're talking about. Look, $800 billion go to the Pentagon. Okay, so that money right there, when you say, well, won't they put in South Dallas? Man, they got this money over here in another bucket, right? And so so you got to understand that. So that's play money that they play with. And so the bottom line is, if there's a world war, China is who you need to be looking at, not Russia. Russia got an economy about the size of Texas. All they got is nuclear weapons. Okay, and so China is the one you'd have to look at if something. So that's what I'm watching. Now China's talking about giving help to giving non-lethal aid to Russia and so forth. Okay, but I don't think they're gonna get.
And China is investing in so many other places.
Right.
They are raping and pillaging.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And so, but at the same time, Africa is rising, and so and they know that. And what we need to focus on, this is my opinion. What we need to focus on one-on-one relationships with Africa, Black folks. I'm talking about, and we need to establish, ourselves one-on-one with them on the business side and so forth and so on. We need to have more than one place to be, and so and I think if we can ever get Africa, South America, and led pretty much by African Americans, hook up that triangle, and we can do whatever we want to do. And so, and they know that, and the world, and like I say, the world is changing. Folks realize it's not as many white folks as they thought it was, and so and so now they realize how small, the actual world powers are. So I think that realization is changing a lot of things. So, but now, World War III, no, and I'm glad they're over there doing that over there than over here. The one thing that the war has shown, remember them Black folks was trying to get out of there and how they treated them.
Yeah.
Oh yes.
Okay,
yes.
So that was okay. That's the first that's the first time I can remember where racism was highlighted globally in the middle of a war. We never had.
If you were a person of color over in Ukraine, you could not get on any kind of transportation until all the white Ukrainians have gotten out. And I heard a report just this morning, as I was getting up, I heard a report this morning that eventually those people of color made their way out of Ukraine, but they had to wait and be last because of their color. And Anthony, yes.
Okay. I was gonna say one more thing. And all you remember all the crying, all them white folks who saw crying, begging for money on TV and all that type of stuff. It's kind of like the situation we got here with our schools. They don't care about African folks crying, just like they don't care about our kids. They worried about white folks feeling bad about Black history. They don't care about our kids. And so, in other words, somebody's saying the same dynamics is working globally. So we need to watch that and understand that we are global power. We got more power to understand. So we need to push those buttons.
Right. Anthony, some of your thoughts about those billions going over to Ukraine? Billions. Unmute yourself, Anthony. I think you're muted. Check your microphone. We can't hear you, Anthony. Check your microphone. Unmute yourself. I think you're muted there.
And we cannot hear him.
We can't quite hear Anthony.
While he's getting his straight, I just want to say that we have to realize that when we're talking about this colorism thing, they're dealing with it on other continents as well. And we need to understand that, oddly enough, while there are some that, they're not caught up in black and white, like in Puerto Rico, they were just Puerto Rican, but there are places where lighter skinned people are treated better. And it's not just in America, it's sadly around. So it's a mindset too. It's not just what your skin looks like, and it's not just an American thing that if you're white, you're right. And unfortunately, we had that mindset among ourselves. And you can see that when you see, like, I wonder how many people saw Anthony being detained by the Irving police officer, and they wondered, what did he do?
Mm-hmm.
Why was it on him to, he
Mm-hmm.
was guilty until proven innocent by us riding by.
Yeah.
How many
Yeah.
times have you seen brothers sitting on the road, and that's a good thing. At least he didn't ask you to sit on the ground or lay on the ground, because they do that also. And we have said,
That's right.
what did he do versus stopping to see what actually is happening. Because every time we get stopped, I'm just glad, because the way it seemed to have impacted you, Anthony, it was at that time, and some people don't get that amount of back and forth that you had with them and were able to walk away.
Well, the thing that bothered me the most, and the reason that I wasn't going to come on, because I didn't want to put our first ever. The city of Irving became a city in 1903. Here we are in 2023, and we finally got our first African American police chief. But I told them the same thing I've told all these other white chiefs. That doesn't guarantee us nothing as citizens of Irving, and this what happened to me is proof of that. Because he cannot control. He's got 400. Well, he told us in the breakfast last Thursday, 30. He's supposed to have 407 officers. They're 30 officers short. They're having a hard time recruiting diverse officers because of the pay and because of the civil service. I ain't got nothing to do with none of that. I'm trying. They used to take me and other black leaders from Hispanic and Muslim leaders all across the country with them to black colleges to try to, in Hispanic areas and diverse areas, to try to recruit officers. And for Cheryl, this boy is what Dr. Garcia said. I think she hit it on the nail. He needs more training. Our officers need more training. But Robert, my mic was off when you asked the question before about Ukraine. I believe with all my heart that we're sending way too much money to them people. Well, America is, and I love them, and I pray for them, and I see the little kids, and my heart bleeds for all of them. But I tell you what, at the same time, I see all them millions and nearly billions of our brothers and sisters over in the Horn of Africa, who are in the largest and the most longest tenured drought in human history, in modern day history. And I don't see our country on the front page of trying to help with that, digging wells and stuff. And I don't know, I'm not astute enough to understand how America still sees itself as the police officer for our entire world. It's not going to work. And whereas all these other countries, if you juxtapose our contributions with the contributions of all these NATO countries, we're giving way, way, way more. And then our city on a local basis, like Cheryl said, our city, I just got open records, Chris, yesterday. They had to send almost $2 million back to HUD because they didn't use it to help prevent people from being evicted. So how can we support our government sending billions of dollars to a country that we really, I don't know. It's just, I think we're doing too much, sending way too much money. I want to help them.
As a military veteran, as a military veteran, surely you understand that that's part of, that's called global power. We've been doing that forever. We've been doing that since World War II. It's global power. That's what we do. We go over and we've did coups. We've gotten rid of governments we didn't like. Same thing in South America, right? That's why they got the racism they got in South America, because we exported down there. So we did that all over. So that's not nothing that we just started doing. So I don't want, let's don't pretend that this is new. This is pro forma. We haven't never not did this since World War II, and it's all linked to power and control.
Does it make it right because we've been doing it?
Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's called the establishment of the New World Order. And as a nation state, if we're going to lead the new world order, we've got to surround Russia, even if we got to push him to World War III. You see, Vladimir Putin gave a speech, Biden gave a speech, and we just hope and pray these guys don't come up with some sort of a nuclear exchange. But moving to another issue real quickly here, what do y'all think about the U.S. response to the people in East Palestine, Ohio, where all those chemicals that chlorine dioxin. Any assessment as to how that situation is being handled? Former President Donald Trump shows up. Biden is over in Ukraine, and then Pete Buttigieg, the transportation secretary, shows up. But the people say, well, look, our animals are dying, fish are dying, and it seems like the species around them are dying. Is that what happened in West Dallas, Cheryl?
Is that what happened in West Dallas? Is that what's happening in Flint, Michigan? Is that what's happening in Jackson, Mississippi?
That's right. That's exactly what I was going to say.
And there are some key things, and I'm going to looking at those areas, and and I'm concerned about every area, but we have to start caring not only about our people in America, but our people around the world. And folks will say, if you don't care, we don't have to address this issue because you don't care about Africa. How many people have gotten on and said, I'm not African, and they darker than your sweater, Arthur? But we're looking at what's happening, and there's still a crisis in a number of places. I'm going to go close right here at Sand Branch. We need to realize Sand Branch is never going to be a place where we need to be living. They are never going to get the water and that is a place they need to use some of the money to find these folks who live there housing somewhere else, because what you have when something like that happens, you do have people who can have trap houses. They manage to operate, and they can take care of everything they need because they have the finances, they have the resources, but other families don't. They have been talking about bringing running water into Sand Branch. I know over.
That's true.
Hey, sure. What I told the folks is, look here. This is my point. And I told them back when I talked to them. Okay, that stuff is out there. Now, if it was me, I'm gonna leave. I mean, I'm still gonna fight you, but I ain't gonna be over there, getting sick while I'm fighting you. They over there sitting in the stuff, still fighting, getting sick. And I say, that don't, come on now.
Some people are stuck after they can't go.
Yeah, you can go.
Economically, how you gonna move somewhere if you ain't got the economics to move?
Yeah, let's go back. Let's look at Hurricane Katrina. Those folks, that's all they know. Some of them.
Yeah, I know.
Hurricane Katrina, so they did not leave.
Edgar, I didn't say that. I said they can leave because they can leave. Now, if they choose to stay, they choose to stay because, as you say, they can't leave. But that's a matter.
If the government's putting up illegal immigrants in 5-star hotels, should we completely evacuate East Palestine, Ohio, and put them up in 5-star hotels until this situation can be resolved? Or because they're Trump supporters, we say, die, white people?
I said I would vote for that.
You would vote for what? Die white people?
I would vote for them to move those people out of the harm's way of all those toxic fumes, just like you're saying, move all them people out of Sand Branch because they're living in an intoxicated chemical environment, and it's killing them slowly.
Like it did West Dallas. And I'm saying that if you're going to put together a plan with these multi-billions of dollars that you need, if you go in there and you do that to Palestine, when we're looking at all the devastation and we're looking at what is happening to Black communities across this country and not putting them in places and not doing a rush to fix the situation there, then there needs to be a firestorm. There needs to be everybody. We talk about lift every voice, and we're not lifting every voice in America. And sadly, I was at an event last night, and I sing "Lift Every Voice" and sing proudly, and I can't sing. And I just say, why do we have these people of all ages don't know the words to this song? Why do we have this? And you want to know why? Because we haven't gotten to a point where we even feel the need to lift our voices. Because if everybody who said they marched with Dr. King had actually marched with Dr. King, we'd be farther along in the struggle than we are. And we need to lift every voice and say, okay, you help Palestine, but God dog it, you're going to help Flint. You're going to help parts of South Florida. You're going to help Louisiana. There are parts of Louisiana and Mississippi that have, and Alabama that have still not recovered from Hurricane Katrina.
That's true.
Yeah, sure, you talking about us messing over us. Remember West Dallas? What happened? Look here. We had, and I ain't gonna call their names, but anyway, we had to turn this Grove and West Dallas. They made a deal and left the people over there. The people that made a deal and left them over there.
And now they are trying to use gentrification, which they won't call it that, is revitalization. And they're trying to take that land from people over there. And they're trying, which they're still burying, they're still trying to build over landfills, the lead smelters that were ours are.
The land's still dirty. It's still dirty.
It's still dirty. Yes.
It's still dirty. And now they putting up, and now they look to what happened. After all the black folks died, and I remember I used to go down and see those ramps leading up because they're losing their legs and things. After they died, they brought the Hispanics in. Now the Hispanics over there fighting to stay. Now they're gonna be putting high rise over there. The dirt is still dirty. It's still dirty, y'all.
Well, you know, I've seen Cheryl hit the nail on the head, and a lot of people in our country, black leaders, Latino leaders, I don't know why we're bypassing Cheryl. That's the big elephant in the room in black communities all across this country, and Latino communities too. It's called gentrification, and it's a lie, because they're using the mantra of development. But what they're doing is they're using a systematized way of running the original inhabitants off their land for pennies on the dollar. They've been doing it for generations.
Well, some say that's what's happening. Some say that's what's happening in Bunton in South Dallas.
That's correct. Yeah. And I'm just gonna throw this out there because y'all might get mad at me, and all the pastors, black pastors, might too. But I was born in 1954. And my parents demanded that I go to church, but they didn't have to, because I love going to church. It's where I met all my friends. I went to an all-black school. I couldn't wait to go to school to be with all my friends, and I couldn't wait to go to church every Sunday. I was superintendent of my Sunday school class from the 7th grade till I graduated from high school. It was some of the happiest days of my life, because I felt like we had an extended black community. We don't have it anymore, and we got a lot of our information that kept us together as black people in the black church. That is no longer existent, and that was the heartbeat of Dr. King and Malcolm X. He get it from an Islamic standpoint, but who cares? The faith. God's house is one of the most important aspects of humanity and of gathering to me. And it was the buttress of our ascent from slavery to freedom. Mm-hmm. And I don't see the black church playing that connective role that Cheryl is saying, that we need to connect better, to do better for our people. It started in the black church. Y'all tell me if I'm wrong, all right?
That was that place of refuge, that place of solace, that place of support, all the things that we needed for our community. We counted on the black church. And then 196 years ago, we began counting on the black press. But you look at folks today and the things that sustained us over the years, people who would never make it inside a classroom, fighting for us to go to school. And then we get educated and we start being more educated than our children, because we don't encourage our children to go to school. Oh, college isn't for everybody. Well, our great grandmas and grandpas weren't thinking it wasn't. They said, you going to college, you're going to get
That's
an
right.
education so you can better yourself. And now we're saying, oh, college isn't for everyone. Well, you know what? Sitting on my couch, laying around on the corner, doing video games, that's not supposed to be in our DNA. That's not supposed to be what kind of material you are also. So we have a lot of work to do rebuilding our communities. And it first starts with us not demonizing them, because I go back to the killers of James Byrd, the bomber in Oklahoma, all the savage acts of white men in America, and they don't get called the things that those 5 Memphis brothers are getting called. And they're still brothers, and I'm just calling on our churches to do more and stop being silent, and to stop allowing politicians to control the pulpit.
Hey, sure, once we integrate, look here, once we integrate it, our churches took a hit too. And then when you roll it forward, and I know you remember this when George Bush was in office, he encouraged them to get those 501(c)(3)s. The banks went in, the Credit Reinvestment Act. They went in and gave them some chicken dinners and loaned them. And they filled up paper. And then so they basically politicized them. They politicized them, and they politicize right now. That's why, what you're talking about. That's why folks ain't got no, lost their faith in them, because they've seen these churches become commercialized and politicized. And so, and again, so it don't have the same patina it did when we were growing up. Remember, segregation brought us together.
That's
we
right.
Economic system.
If you look at your clock, wait a minute, we got about 1 more minute left. And we just found out, too, that the 82-year-old mother of a Fort Worth City Council member was shot. I don't know if you mean City Council member in District 2, Carlos Flores. His 82-year-old mother, Garcia, supposedly Thursday night, somebody knocked on her door, and she thought it was a relative. And when she went to open the door, somebody shot her in the abdomen. 82 years old, the mother of a Fort Worth City Council member, Carlos Flores. I never met Carlos, but from what I understand, he's a very conservative Latino on that Fort Worth City Council. I think he was one of those who was in opposition to a Citizens Police Review Board. But we're asking people to pray for his 82-year-old mother. We don't know if the suspect has been arrested or not, but we got to be careful nowadays, because crime is just out there. People are just looking to do whatever they can to anybody. But somebody knocked on the door Thursday night and wind up shooting her in the stomach. And at last report, she's in stable condition at a local hospital, but police in Fort Worth are on that given situation there. And then also we found out that Dallas Mayor Eric Johnson, is it true, Cheryl, that he's not going to have any opposition as he runs for re-election for mayor?
Yes, the first time in over 60 years, I think, that there has not been almost 60 years. There's I think it was like 1967, the last time there was opposition. And you think about that, it's really interesting, because I know you're short on time, that the mayor started putting out information. He started putting out who his supporters were and everything. And I think he was telling folks, don't come for me. I got the backing, I got the support and everything. And then that's, I kind of like that kind of,
what happened to Hinojosa? What happened to Hinojosa?
What happened?
I think a number of things happened to Hinojosa. And I think one thing, you look at those numbers, which we all need to be focusing on. And I hope that you will focus on shows in the future. We need to focus on what this is, 23 and 7 more years, it'll be census time again. Census wiped out some people in New York, in Florida, and there was an undercount, and redistricting became an issue as well. And we suffered because of that. We lost seats, the Democrats did, but Hinojosa and there were people who told him they are not going, this was not his time. They were not going.
Real quick before we leave.
He saw what those numbers look like, because they may have more Hispanic voters, but they aren't voting.
That's correct.
No, sure. What happened in Hinojosa was, it came out about that special ed teacher that got killed, and he covered it up. That's what happened in Hinojosa. That what
And
happened.
I think the family of that special ed teacher is suing right now, aren't they? Aren't they
Right.
suing?
Right.
Yeah, the
School
suit,
board
yeah.
meeting the other night, and you know,
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. That got him is those
yeah,
lawsuits.
that's what happened here in the Hosa.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
But he
Well, look,
had,
y'all,
so that's the thing. People other folks get to do things that we don't get to do. And he had so many people covering for him
But
because
then,
there are other people. Peter Broadus was another name that was mentioned. So we just have to watch people because some of us are so ready to line up with, we'll do anybody not black.
well, look, y'all, we're completely out of time here, and maybe next week we can. Now, y'all heard about the brat, right?
That's
Y'all,
true,
this
sir.
I do
the
black,
rapper.
sir. I do blackity black.
too black, too strong. Maybe there's fear of a black planet. I don't know, y'all.
I'm
But anyway, look,
pro-black
Cheryl,
too. That's the way God made me. I'm pro-black, and I'm gonna stick to it.
Yes.
well, it's nothing wrong with being pro-self, but as Dr. King said, we want to be judged by the content of our character rather than the color of our
Yeah,
skin.
but
But then
God
again,
made me black, and I didn't have nothing to do with that.
And they're not doing that. So we got to go hard.
And just I want to just leave me alone.
well, Arthur, Anthony, and Cheryl, and Anthony, we hate you got racially profiled, brother. But when the Spirit of the Lord is upon you, the demons will mess with you, man. I mean, because you were doing the Lord's work, and then all of a sudden you got racially profiled. You brought the city together, first black police chief, and then the very next day you got racially profiled. I was telling you,
I don't believe in coincidences, Robert. But I'll tell you what, this is my final say on here. I ain't worried about nothing because God's got me. He's got the whole wide world in his hand, and He's got me too. I wouldn't be lying.
All right.
Well, look, we want to thank y'all for being with us this week here on another edition of the Review.
Me, Robert.
Our pleasure, Cheryl and Arthur. We thank you for being with us. And of course, coming up next week, we'll be here as well. And be sure to tell a friend now about this radio station because we're trying to do something to keep things going in Dallas, Texas. Also want to shout out to Reverend Marion Barnett over at 89.3 because we've got to have some kind of talk going on in this community. And Cheryl, maybe consider doing a feature story on this great radio station. The owner and his wife are coming up with a new morning team, just like Jimmy Avant and Cupcake Dora did many, many years ago. Well, look, I'm Reverend Ashley. Thank you for being with us. We'll see you. Want you to have a blessed day.